Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I just want to talk about the state of Rivals of Aether 2, and I should preface this video by saying that I love this game. I've been enjoying it so much recently, especially since Atlas came out. It really rebirthed the passion that I had for it, but this is going to be a negative video. This is going to be basically just me talking about things that I want changed or want for the future, but I need to be established that I love this game. I don't hate Rivals at all. Love the team. They're doing a great job, but there are a couple things that I would like to change, and we're going to be talking about them in today's video. Really quickly, use code ProofBlock in the shop. They just released the Arcane skin for Genesis, and if you want to support the players at Genesis, it adds to the prize pool when you buy the skin. So that's pretty cool. Support the players. Support me. Let's watch the video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is just the general meta of Rivals 2, and I think it's in a really good spot right now. You've got a lot of characters that I just would not make any changes to at all. I do think Maple and Raster are better than Zetterburn and Rano, but that's really only at the top level. I think for most levels of play, they aren't, and I think for most levels of play, these characters are a little bit too overwhelming. We'll get to them in just a second, though, but for the most part, I think Crag's in a great spot. I think Forsburn is in an amazing spot. I think Fleet is maybe in the best spot of the entire game. I know she's not an amazing character, but I really like the niche that she is currently filling just as that edge guarding archetype, like solely an edge guarding archetype. Really, I think Claire's in a really good spot. I think Lox is in a really good spot as well. Now, for characters that I would buff, Arcane, I don't know exactly what I would buff, because the thing about Arcane is if you buff his camping at all, like the bubble stuff, then he gets like really annoying. So I would say that you should buff his boxing, but his boxing is already very good. Specifically like Nair, down tilt, up tilt, those moves are incredible, but it's just not better than I think the characters around him, and outside of that boxing, he is extremely lackluster. So I'm very curious to see kind of which approach the devs take, if they even touch Arcane, because it's not like Arcane needs a buff. He is still a viable character, but there's just no real reason to pick him over anyone else in the cast. So I'm very curious if they go with the route of making his camping a little bit stronger, which I don't think they'll do. In that first buff, they kind of seemed like, okay, we want to move away from that. I hope they kind of make it so forward air is a little bit more fluid as a movement tool, because I think that could be something that is really cool for the character. But I do think Arcane needs a little bit of a buff just to get him to the level of the other characters. And Atlas, I think, is going to need some pretty significant changes, to be honest. And the real big issue with Atlas is that this character's disadvantage state is just so ungodly bad, and it's going to be the worst in Rivals 2 for the foreseeable future, and there's not really much that you can do about that. You could potentially make it so his neutral special is like a lot faster, so you're constantly getting the armor on, in which case the armor is actually pretty solid. It gives him a chance to make it back to the stage because you do have that, but then you have the problem of using neutral special as an offensive tool when Atlas is already a really strong kill character, and I don't think that they necessarily need to buff his neutral tools, because I think he's okay in neutral, especially with ice, as people get better than that. The really big issue with Atlas is that his disadvantage is just so ungodly bad, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to approach that, because they definitely need to. Next up is going to be the characters that I think are a little bit too strong. I should say this is for the average level of play. If we're just looking at the top level, then I actually think that these aren't even the top two characters in the game. I would not touch them, but for the average level of play, I do think that they need changes. For Zetterburn, I hate Shine. I think Shine is an awful mechanic, just in general, in any fighting game. I think it's Baby's first mix-up, just really lazy as an option, just to mash on your opponent's shield and call that pressure. But there is clear counterplay against Shine in Rivals 2 with crouch canceling, so I'm not going to be nerfing that move, and instead the approaches that I would take to nerfing Zetterburn would be nerfing his downer so he is not often to reset combos onto the ground like he does constantly right now. It feels like every Zetter combo is either ending with you getting spiked off stage or spiked back onto the stage, because he can confirm it out of a back air, he can confirm it out of up air, he can confirm it out of neutral air, depending on the percentage windows, but also that neutral air could confirm into forward air, which then can confirm into up air, which then can confirm into down air. You kind of get the point that I'm trying to get across here. So I would add a little bit more frame data to downer, just making it so his reset combos are no longer the thing that he's constantly going for. He actually has to play like advantage state against the opponents instead of just tech chasing against them. And then my changes for Rano are really simple. I would add a little bit more frame data to up tilt, just because you can chain that move into itself, especially if you can do the slotting up tilt, which, to be fair to those Rano players, is a very difficult input to do consistently, but I also don't think you should be able to do 80% consistently for just like one move. And actually it's two moves, and it's a zero death with up tilt and forward air. They need to change forward air. I cannot believe they went with the initial change that they went with forward air of just giving it that sour spot hitbox, because the sour spot is now just a combo tool in it to the sweet spot. They did not address the main issue that this tool has, where you can just spam it as Rano. It is just like a walling tool that you can throw. It is a combo tool at low percent, it is a combo tool at mid percent, it is a spike, and it is a kill tool at high percent. Rano forward air is so over centralizing. You never should be not using this move. You should always be throwing it out as the Rano player. They either need to make the frame data on it worse, the kill power on it worse, the combo ability on it worse. Just, it can't have all three. It needs to have two at most. Another thing that a lot of people have talked about in Rivals 2 would be the idea of adding Whiff Flag, specifically adding Whiff Flag on aerials, and I think that this would be an amazing idea because Rivals 2 is a very spammy game as it stands right now. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, but it's really spammy to the point where most characters don't really think about what they're throwing out. They're just throwing out tools in neutral. Like Rano, forward air. You just keep forward airing, correct. Just keep back airing. Just keep nairing as locked. Like, there are so many characters that just have a tool that is the clear tool that they should be going for. And I think by adding Whiff Flag, you are now forcing a little bit more variety into those players. And again, specifically Whiff Flag in the aerials, I think is the main area where they need them. I don't think any of the tilts are too over centralizing when you're not able to just like actually pressure them afterwards. A majority of the time you are going to be able to get a punish, but a lot of time people can just throw out an aerial and just completely disengage where there's nothing that you can do about it, especially if it doesn't hit your shield. They're just doing it for the spacing. So I think Whiff Flag is something that they should absolutely experiment. Again, it's kind of tough to implement because like, should they implement it on every move? Should they just implement it on certain moves? Me personally, I think they should just implement it on certain moves, but I also am very aware that that takes a lot of time just going through, okay, does this move need Whiff Flag? Does this move need Whiff Flag? Is this move over centralizing? Just stuff like that. But if they were to do that, I think it could be amazing for the game. Just take down that spammability a little bit in the neutral and make you more thoughtful in what you're actually trying to do. And I also feel like it'll be more rewarded in that sense because you're actually able to use your movement as a punish tool. Like, you can whiff punish someone and it actually makes sense instead of just like holding the shield up against them and then praying that they don't get their spacing right. Now that we've talked about the meta of the game, which, as I said, I think is in a really good spot, it's time to talk about the game itself. And there's a couple changes that I would make to it. First things first, though, big shout out to the changes that they made with the menu. This is the first time that I've personally seen it, and I think it looks super, super clean. But the big change that I would make to the training mode is just making it so that the bot can actually attack you. Because before you go into the training mode, you get to choose the difficulty of the bot. You can have it on dummy mode, so it just does nothing but recover. You could wail on it, practice your combos. Or you could put it on difficulties from 1 to 9 and then just play against a normal CPU, just no stock involved. I guess get to reset it as well, do your certain percent windows. But if you just choose the no bot, there is no option to actually make the bot attack you. So you can't like put yourself in a scenario where you want to get used to like parry timings or where you want to like, I don't know, whip punish a move with like, I don't know, a sliding F tilt or a sliding forward tilt, depending on which character you're playing. Just trying out new tech like that, you're not able to do right now in Rivals of Aether 2. There's no real way to kind of test whiff punishing combos and parry timing. So I think if they were to implement just like, I don't know, allowing the opponent to forward strong, forward tilt, really any type of attack, it could be extremely beneficial and just make the training mode a little bit more valuable than it already is. Another really big issue that I have with the game is that I never got my basketball Rano skin. What's up with that, Dan? And I've got two final things that I want to add to Rivals 2. The first one, and they're probably going to add this in the future, is just the stats that they had from Rivals 1. It doesn't need to be like exactly these stats, but just something along these lines. I absolutely love the stat system that they had in the first game. If they could add something like this in the second one, I would eat it up. I love that kind of stuff. But the main change that I want in Rivals 2 is going to be a change to the ranks. Specifically, I want individual character ranking. And the ranking system in Rivals 1 is a little bit different than it is in Rivals 2. You're going to have a ladder in Rivals 2, but I'm pretty confident that you could still pull off individual character rank on the ladder in Rivals 2. You could just have people appear on the ladder multiple times. I really don't think that'd be that big of an issue, and that's like logistically, maybe it's an issue, but as it stands right now, there's like a negative incentive to go on the ladder, unless you just like actually literally want to climb that thing. There aren't really any rewards for it, and if I want to try a new character in a competitive setting, right now, I really just can't. If I want to go on the ladder and win, I need to play Crag or Rano. Low-key, my Aether and Forest Burn kind of nasty too, but I couldn't try my Maple or my Raster in a competitive setting because I would just get absolutely walloped. By adding individual character rank, you allow me to try these new characters in that competitive setting. I get to learn them, get to use stage ban, stuff like that. But you don't take away from that hard RR that you've earned with your actual characters. And if you want to make it so there's character switching, you can have it so you can only switch between characters within ranks. I'm pretty sure that's how they did it in Rivals 1. I just think that individual character ranking is a better reflection of skill, to be honest, because it's like if a player can get onto the top 100 with like multiple characters, then they're obviously just like extremely good. You get to see, okay, is this guy a good Crag player or is this guy a good player of the game? And then I can actually go on the ladder with like Rano, with Aether, and not have to worry about losing my hard-earned RR that I got with Crag. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The support has been absolutely unreal as of late. As I said multiple times on this video, I'll say it again. I'm really happy with Rivals 2 right now. I think the game is in a super good spot. We got Genesis coming up. Absolutely looking forward towards that. And if even a couple of these changes could be implemented, we're looking at like 5 out of 5-star Michelin chef type game. So really hope some of these changes get implemented. But if not, we're still in a good spot. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.